Shalom and ahlan wa sahlan bikum. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you from Budapest, Hungary, and I'm here with my beautiful, sexy, gorgeous wife. Say hi, boo.
Hi everyone, this is Aksi and I'm from Turkey, and today we are reviewing No Other Land.
Yes, this is our 135th episode of our movie review series, and today we're tackling the 2024 documentary film about the expulsion of the Palestinian people from the West Bank. This was a film directed by Basel Adra, a young Palestinian man who is a guerrilla journalist, and Yuval Abraham, a young Israeli journalist who collaborated together to make this film that ended up winning 34 awards. Most notably, they won the Best Documentary Award at the 97th Academy Awards, meaning this is a Oscar-winning film, a moment in history for many people who are cognizant and aware of the Palestinian struggle and wanted to have more representation in media. I want to say also, before we start this film, I'll speak for me and also for my wife. We stand against all forms of oppression and discrimination. That means anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, Arabphobia, and all types of hatred and bigotry against groups of people. So as we make this review, where we will be very critical of the Israeli government, I don't want anybody to take this as we are anti-Semitic. We love our Jewish brothers and sisters, but we are against oppression of any group of people. Would you agree, Acti?
Yes, and we stand against genocide, and we stand with Palestinians with what's happening right now.
And if the same thing were happening to Jewish people, we would be standing against it. Ain't that right?
Yes.
Absolutely. So we're against all forms of oppression and white supremacy. With that being said, what is happening in the West Bank is vicious. It is atrocious. Here is a quick history lesson on what has been happening in the West Bank. This is the territory that you can see, which is an occupied territory of the Israeli government. Under international law, people are not allowed to create settlements there. But as you see, slowly on this map, all these little dots across the West Bank from 1970 to 2025 have been slowly filling up with Israeli settlers buying land, building properties on land occupied historically by the Arab settlers or the Arab people, also known as Palestinians, who have been there for generations. This is illegal under international law. It is unethical, and it is what we would consider a genocide. Genocide is not only just killing people, it is actively displacing people from their land. So, what do you think about this as you see it unfold on the screen, Acting?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's for such a long time, starting from the beginning. It's like these people have been enduring, protesting against, and also fighting this oppression, this apartheid state. And they are sort of like forced to, hate their neighbors, and they're forced to feel uncomfortable in their own homes and lands. So that's definitely devastating feeling to constantly feel. And it also reminds me of some of the things that my country did, I believe, like with the, Kurdish people, with the Kurdish states, and with the Armenian genocide that happened in Turkey. I feel like we also took land from other people who also lived in those lands like we did for centuries. And, we don't talk about it in the Turkish media. But it doesn't mean this thing that is happening now, we have to be silent about it.
We should not be silent about it at all. And I'm glad you brought up your country because my country was built on this sort of genocide, this sort of expulsion of native people, and watching it play out, for most of all of my lifetime and more, blatantly now with what's happening in Gaza and the ramping up of attacks and displacement of people in the West Bank. It's sort of like you're watching the old history unfold right in front of us, because this is the same playbook that the Anglo-Saxons used when they colonized all of the Americas with their other European counterparts as well. So it's just very sad to see this happen. But let's go to where this film takes place before we jump into the actual review. This movie takes place, of course, in what we consider the Middle East. in a place called Masafer Yatta, which is a very small village in the southeastern part of the occupied territories in the West Bank. It's not that far away from the city of Hebron, which is a major city in the West Bank, but it lays on the border with Israel, the Zionist-controlled entity called Israel, and not that far away from Jordan, and I believe the Dead Sea right here. So, going back to our documentary now, we're going to jump into the story and review it. So, opening up the screen right here, Acti will do the honors on setting the stage for us. Let's go.
Yeah, so the film starts with this dark scene at night where our lead person, Basel, he's driving along the road and he comes across this police checkpoint and something is happening. There's some chaos there. And he's just trying to look, observe, and he's also, I believe, recording with his camera, and we're introduced to him. And then right after that, he starts talking about, where he's from, his past. And he mentions, like, he grew up in protests, and he mentions that his parents were activists, and they've been under Israeli occupation for as long as he could remember as a child. And then he goes into today, his dad owns a gas station in his village. And and the place he grew up is Masafer Yatta, which is the place we just saw like on the map. And it's mostly like humble people who, live in humble houses, mostly farmers and animal herders and those type of people.
Yeah, when I saw the beginning of the film, it does give you this very eerie feeling. It's almost like, you're watching somebody who's living in a parallel type of universe. It's almost like Star Warsian. It's very like Tatooine. If you watch Star Wars, if you're a nerd like me, like the Empire controls these vast territories where people sort of live free lives, but not really. Like stormtroopers walk around and at any moment they could like pop you or enslave you and stuff like that. So it's like, it's crazy that there are places in this world where people are living on the edge of freedom and at the same time under, brutal occupation. And I also thought it was funny that, in the Middle East, the Arabs still own the gas stations. I just wonder if Basil's dad says, my friend, every time somebody pops up. But that's what I was thinking.
I think when I first saw the scenes, at least in terms of like just the people, it reminded me of like some parts of Turkey, some people I knew in Turkey, so it felt like really close, like I'm watching, like these people are, I don't know, my distant relatives or something like that. And also the sadness of like, going back, having a flashback right at the beginning and then seeing all of that continue like even today in his life, and the sadness of like just the main character having to grow up with those type of things. Like right at the beginning, we see his father being attacked and tackled by the Israeli soldiers. I was just imagining what that would feel, as a child, seeing all of that and growing up with that.
Yeah, it's like if your dad was a part of the civil rights movement and you saw his ass getting sprayed by water hoses and bitten by dogs, and you're like, Daddy, yo, what? So yeah, it definitely probably left an impression on young Basel. And I'm reading a book right now on my channel by Yahya Al-Sinwar titled The Thorn in the Carnation, and it's a novel about a young boy growing up in Gaza during the occupation, from the inception of the occupation, and many of the things that happened to Abu Basel throughout this film sort of remind me of what happens in Yahya Sinwar's book. For instance, the men are randomly picking up and taken to jail by the Israelis and, beaten and interrogated and starved for days or months on end with no clear sign of what they're charged with. And so I have a lot of respect for Abu Basel for surviving all of that, because I'm pretty sure Abu Basel can count on all the fingers and toes he has. Friends that have died, friends that have been arrested, friends that, have been disappeared by the Israeli state, you know what I mean, or suffered from the Israeli state, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's not that like, we condone terrorism or violence, but
we don't condone, by the way.
Yeah, it's not like we don't condone, just to be clear. But I feel like you do have to look things in a context, in a historical, relevance, and look at things in that perspective, and not just strictly like, this happened this year, but what happened before that, and what happened before that, and what happened before that? Yeah, because it's all connected.
Yeah.
But yeah, continuing on with the story, we're back to today, and we see this demolition of Palestinian houses. Bulldozers come and Israeli soldiers come, and they're harassing the Palestinians that are living in the village and demolishing their houses. The little kids, running around in danger of being harmed by the bulldozers or the soldiers. And people are shouting at them, "Why are you here? Why are you taking our homes?" And they just basically either ignore them or shout back. And then we see like people trying to move their stuff into the caves. They're trying to survive and kind of like get over the trauma, the shock that just happened.
Yeah, if this film doesn't make you scared of bulldozers, I don't know what will. I am terrified now of bulldozers because in this film, like as you see in this scene, the Israelis pop up with the bulldozers and almost try to bulldoze the building while the people, the little girls, are still inside them. And the movie starts off real vicious in nakedly showing how this displacement is taking place. And the justification the Israeli state gives is saying you're living illegally in a land that we have decided is an army training facility. So I think this goes to show the interconnectedness of, the struggle for Palestinian rights is also against the militaristic, capitalistic forces that we're fighting against in the United States. Everything is intertwined, which is why we're, saying that what is happening to these people is wrong. Because these companies that supply these bulldozers, these tanks, that tell these governments you need to invest more in military hardware and stuff like that, that's billions of dollars that's going in to funneling the displacement of these people. So it's very, very sick, how this militarism looks over the humanity of people. You're saying it's more important to build an air base, a tank training facility, a bomb squad or whatever, than actually a school, a hospital, a farm. You get what I'm saying? That's the sick part about this.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like it's being done on purpose to drive Palestinians away from their own lands because, if we make life hell for them, they will leave at one point.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just the want of the Zionist, institution.
Yeah. And it just rings so much of the history of, at least in my country, like how they expelled the Native Americans. They were living in a place like Ohio for centuries, millennia. And then one day the white man comes and says, this land you're living on is now supposed to be the United States state of Ohio, and you're living in the military base and training facility of the federal government, so you got to go. Then they repeat that process through Alabama, Mississippi, Wisconsin, whatever, right? Like just kick out the natives and then name the place after them. Yeah,
definitely. I feel like it's very reminiscent of a lot of colonial stories. Like even if you think about British people like coming to India and colonizing India as well. It's like they bring their bureaucracy with them and tell them, oh, in order to do this, you need a permission. And the people there are like, permission from what? From who? Like, this is my home, my land.
Yeah.
And sort of the same happens here. They're asked to get a permission they can never get.
Yeah.
They can never be allowed to have. So it's all kind of planned out and very systematic.
It's all very systematic, and it all leads to the further degradation of the people, which then gives justification to the oppressor to then oppress them even more. As we see, they get bulldozed out of their homes and forced to go underground, literally into the caves. Now, I'm going to be frank, these caves look kind of lit. They got everything up in them. They got refrigerators, they got TVs, they got bathtubs. Man, this shit looks better than a house, and it's probably more eco-friendly. less of a carbon footprint. But it goes to show, like for some reason in human psychology, or at least under the psychology that we've developed under capitalism, we really dislike people that are fucked up. We really dislike the poor. We see homeless people every day. We walk past them. We see, people that live in substandard housing, and we have more blame to the people who live that way rather than to the system that creates it. You get what I'm saying? And so when we see people that are forced to live in caves, we say, oh, look at them. They're subhuman. They can't get a home. They can't get a good job. Why are they refusing to live like civilized people? And that allows people even more to, justify the expulsion of these people and getting rid of them and stuff like that. So that's what I was thinking of when I saw these cave scenes. It just reminds me so much of like what they did to Black Americans. You know what I mean? They put us in the ghettos, put us in the projects, gave us the worst schools, the worst jobs, the worst opportunities. And then they said, look at them, niggas. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Damn, that was so good.
Yeah.
Preach.
Any comments on that?
I guess just in addition to like what you said, just personally, in a personal level, when I saw this scene, it just made me like happy to have my home and to have somewhere to go securely at the end of the day and, be with my husband, have my privacy, cook a meal, have warmth, shelter me. Like those are big privileges when you see what is happening in the West Bank and, in this village. So it just made me feel thankful. Yeah,
we're going to talk about the idea of home more throughout this documentary because that's really what it is about. But the fact that people are able to, I guess, rebuild their homes, transfer their homes, like the building gets destroyed, but you go underground. The home is the community, really. Because everywhere they go, the moms, stick together with their children, the parents stick together, and the whole community coalesces around each other to rebuild the home. The home isn't a physical space; it's the idea. It's not it's something beyond just the building. So
yeah. But continuing on, we meet Yuval, which is the Jewish journalist that is a friend of Basel, and they meet. And, Basel introduces him to some of the other Palestinians there, and they joke like between themselves, oh, you're a human rights Israeli. And he doesn't get offended by their jokes. He's trying to like explain. Yuval also knows Arabic as well. So he's trying to basically gain their trust, I would say, and tell them like, hey, I'm a journalist. I'm trying to fight for Palestine. I'm trying to write for what is happening with you. And then they go into Basel's house. And Basel's father also welcomes Yuval into their house. He introduces him to everyone. And they also, once again, this theme of like home, he asks him like, would you ever forget where you're from? Like, would you ever want to leave where you were born? And, you can never forget that place is special. And this is the place for us. And they're trying to make us leave. So they sort of like vent to him a little bit because, he's Israeli, but he's there to help them.
Yo, I gotta say, Yuval got the biggest nuts or the most chutzpah. He's got the most chutzpah of any Jewish man. This is like showing up after a Klan lynching and you're that one woke white guy who says, so tell me about your problems. What's happening in the community? Literally, the Israeli government, the Zionist IDF shows up, bulldozes a school with children inside, and then the woke Israeli comes. I mean, you couldn't write a better script, right? But man, Yuval, he shows up and he's speaking Arabic, and I've just got to be real. I'm so jealous of Yuval's. I know Hebrew is not that hard to transfer into Arabic because there's many loan words and it's similar in nature. They're both Semitic languages, but I have an affinity for the Arabic language. It's a beautiful language and it's also very interesting and intricate. So I'm jealous of Yuval picking up the Arabic. You know what I'm saying? But I also thought, the fact that, like you said, they were all taking it out on Yuval. I think, Yuval sort of expected that. And there's probably a bunch of scenes in the film where they cut out where they were just getting on Yuval's ass, like, your government, your people, y'all are, acting like, animals to us. Why? What did we do to y'all? And I'm sure he dealt with it, but, I think that's what it takes for people to really gain empathy and understand, is to actually walk through that fire and, really face what the other side says about, your side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what it means to be an ally. Like, you have to understand and accept, why are people upset, and what is behind their, anger or sadness.
Yeah.
And just like let that sink in and not be like, I don't know, like defending yourself and not be, oh, but this happened, but we didn't do it. It was my grandfather.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to do that. You just want to accept it and also try to help, of course, like how Yuval was doing. So I definitely like sympathize with Yuval in that sense. Like, he has some privileges, but he's trying to use them for good.
And it also takes a lot of courage for Yuval to be doing, not only going to a place where, people's emotions might be so high about their being displaced from their homes, but also the fact that other Israelis are going to see this, other Zionists will see this and say, look at that traitor, look at that person, who's trying to help the enemy. Doesn't he know that they're savages? Doesn't he know that if they had the chance, they would kill us all? Don't they know, you know what I mean? Like, the idea, I think one of the big reasons why we don't get further in a lot of causes fighting against, whether it be sexism or racism, is because people are too afraid of what people in their group will say about them. White people don't want to speak out against anti-blackness or other forms of discrimination because they don't want to get made fun of or castigated by other white people. And it's the same thing here probably with Yuval. Being a anti-Zionist Israeli is probably, the worst thing you could be in an Israeli society, of course, or calling it a genocide, or saying that the displacement in the West Bank is illegal and immoral will probably get you, beaten up in the streets, I assume. You know what I mean? That's how much, especially how vocal you are with it. So
yeah, I definitely agree. And I feel like that's also one of the things that create change and start change. Because, Palestinians know that they have human rights. Palestinians know that this is their land, that they have to be there. They should be there. They should fight. But Israelis don't. Most Israelis, they do, but they choose to ignore it. They choose to dehumanize them. So that's where the change should start, because that's where the, connection is disrupted. It's not, Palestinians who are not aware of their rights. They are.
Yeah. And going back to, the Palestinian subjectivity of this, one of the most fascinating things to me, and one of the things that keeps reminding me that we're all human, is that one thing you notice about oppressed people anywhere in the world, generally, there is a lack of blanket hate for the oppressor. So this is why you don't hear many black people saying, I hate all white people. You don't see many Palestinians saying, kill all the Jews or whatever. You don't hear Kurdish people saying all Turks are bad. You know what I mean? When you're an oppressed person, you realize something that, there's bad people and good people in this world, and you're not just going to blanket hate the other group. But one of the things that's the most interesting is that people that are a part of a group that's doing the oppressing, a lot of the times they have a blanket, statement or stereotype or subjectivity towards an oppressed people, which is one of the most interesting things I find. You know what I mean? For example, most women don't say they hate all men, but they understand that there are a lot of men out there that are sexist, misogynistic, and patriarchal. You know what I mean? So it's
That's
very
a really
fascinating.
Good point. Yeah. And I also just throughout the movie, I like the fact that how they constantly tease and debate Yuval, but they also embrace him too.
Yeah.
It's like that balance. They still doubt him a little bit, and I feel like that's normal. And even Yuval doesn't really mind that. But yeah. Okay, so continuing on, we see the next day, the kids want to go to school, and This is Basel's father, and he's driving them to school, and they're trying to continue their life as usual because, yeah, kids need to go to school. And then we get a flashback again, and it's basically also showing like how the settlers and the soldiers started coming in. They said that this was a land that they needed for tank training, and then Palestinians took them to court, which was the Israeli court. There was nobody from their side that was deciding. And it also took the court to decide for 22 years. And the decision was, of course, Palestinians should leave. So, yeah, it's basically just explaining this background information, giving us the background information of what happened. And I think it was also proving, like, we've been fighting. And, it's just... there's a lot of support for Israel from a lot of European nations, a lot from America and things like that. And it's hard to keep up with that, I would imagine, just economically.
Yeah. So, there are some people out there that say, oh, the Palestinians have just been doing violent means and methods or types of terrorism to fight for their freedom, but they've been using, the actual judicial system that's been put in place. They've been trying to do it non-violently, peacefully for a long time. The scene when they were, the Arabs were in the courtroom and, they can't get justice while the, symbol of the state hangs above them. That just reminded me of like every single, black person that was, charged and railroaded for a murder or a rape they didn't commit. Meanwhile, the American flag just hangs over the courtroom. So I hate to keep on trying. I'm not trying to center myself, but I'm just relaying an experience that I know deeply to what I'm seeing here. And that's how I'm trying to, empathize with the people here. But, just seeing these tanks and these images of these children witnessing this barbarity and this militarism in their face, it just reminds me again, of the fact that we're in a battle against so many different forces, against using the judiciary as a form of genocide, using military as a form of genocide, using displacement as a form of genocide. It's all interconnected and interwoven.
Yeah. And, also one of the reasons I put this image and a couple of more throughout the review is to show, this is a very important story and it's a real story. It's a documentary, right? But I also do think they put very strong imagery, just artistically. I feel like it was a very well-made documentary as well. If you see this feels wrong. This feels like just brutal and atrocious, and it moves something in you. And I feel like they captured those moments so well. Unfortunately, those moments happen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
When I see that tank, I just see U.S. tax dollars. That's your paycheck. You working at Wendy's 5 days a week. 20% of that check go to these Israeli tanks.
But yeah, continuing on, we see more footage of demolitions, and Basel is also describing what is happening. He's saying they're coming and they're destroying 200 houses. And they're giving out these permission slips for the Israeli soldiers to destroy the houses, and the local people there try to, fight with the soldiers and try to, not let them do it. And then we also meet this Zionist, guy. I think his name is Elon, and he's just is signing things and then giving them to Palestinians and says go, you don't have a house now and you have to leave, and if you don't leave we're gonna arrest you, we're gonna shoot you, whatever. And he ignores everybody, and local people hate him, obviously. And then we see the footage of this, another house getting demolished, and it was so petty. They're destroying every single thing. They're destroying the bathroom. What is the purpose of that? If not being absolutely dehumanizing a person. And it's the house of this lady, which we will continue to follow. And, they're asking her where can you go? And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, I can't go anywhere. This is my land. Why should I suffer for my land to be and live in my land?
So going back to, the character of Elon, the film, what I think makes this documentary stand apart is that in a way it has, a main villain, sort of like you would have like in a drama film, a main antagonist who is Elon, this nameless, faceless, cold-hearted, Zionist bureaucrat kind of, because he's the guy, like you said, who passes out the slips and says your home is gone now, and they try to confront him and he's just cold with it. He doesn't get animated. He never gets out of pocket. He just coldly does what the state is telling him to do, and possibly also what is in his heart as well. Like this displacement is justified. This is our land, and we're slowly reclaiming it. So I think that's one of the brilliance of this film. They create this main central enemy. Also, at the same time, with Doha, because her daughter's name is Doha, which I'll call her. I forgot her main name, but Doha is respectable. But it also creates a parallel story as well. So we not only get the story in this documentary of Basel's, life in Gaza, we also get Basel and Yuval's relationship as a side story, but also the story of Doha and her family as well, which I think separates this documentary from others in creating different narrative arcs throughout it. But what did you think?
Yeah, it's like, I feel like with this story being created by all the demolitions and things like that, and we follow this story till the end, right? We can see how, something, I don't know, Netanyahu says, and it's just a word, it's just a writing, and it changes the whole life of a person, of a family, and you can see how that is not put into consideration in structures like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody cares about the story, the humanity, the dignity of these people when those signatures are being said and done.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
And going back to this scene right here, throughout the film, everybody's got cameras, right? And this is one of the things that, this film is different than other documentaries. This is not made by a professional, documentary crew. It was probably sliced up by professional editors, but it's Basel's story and a few other people's story told through a cell phone, maybe a high-end Nikon or Canon camera, but stuff like that. But you notice here in this scene, like there's this guy in the background who's got a camera. Another guy's got a camera. Some guy here is holding a cell phone. You know what I mean? Everybody is telling this story, but you don't know what narrative they have, because this guy could be an Israeli, this guy could be a Palestinian, and this guy could be a Western journalist from, I don't know, the BBC, whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's so interesting how sometimes it seems like people are performing for the camera, you know what I mean, while these atrocious things are happening. What do you think about that?
Yes, I feel like even unconsciously that would happen when you see that you're being watched, right? When you're being recorded. But I do also believe if it's the Israeli cameraman, the Western cameraman, or the Palestinian cameraman, I think it also brings a level of safety to the environment, because people cannot also act on certain things. Like you can't just pull up and shoot a person. And sometimes
I would disagree, because we see that happen throughout this film. The person knows the camera is there and still pulls out the gat and gets to spray him.
Yeah, but most of the time they either try to like cut the footage, or it's being recorded from far away. Of course, it could still happen. Like people can take it there, but I do believe it's also, at least for daily events like this that are happening in Palestine, which is not normal, but it does create some level of safety. So that's kind of a bit of a value of the media, I guess, in that sense. I
would argue that, as we're seeing throughout this film, and also through the live stream genocide in Gaza, the camera is not a protective force. And in fact, with the dissemination of all types of media, you could have images running all day of Palestinians being abused or any other group of people being abused. And depending on how that narrative is framed, people could walk away with actually a negative view of the people that are being abused. We saw this with George Floyd. Everybody saw a man with his knee on his neck. And now, even still today, people are disparaging George Floyd's name and saying he was a drug addict, a criminal, a gangster, whatever, as if he deserved to die with a knee on his neck. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. I'm not saying camera is the only thing that's, protecting them. And I understand how it can, make us used to seeing traumas, used to seeing killings and things like that and desensitize us. I'm aware of those things. But I just feel like in certain moments, it can be just a factor, not a whole protection,
right.
Of course.
I would just imagine, in this situation where we see Basel's father stand unarmed, pointing his finger in the chest of an armed Israeli soldier, and 3 other Israeli soldiers are nearby. If there were no cameras there, would he live to tell the tale? I don't know. There's a good chance he wouldn't. You know what I mean? So maybe the camera does protect in that sense from the naked murder. But I would argue that anytime somebody is aware that a camera is recording them, then it ceases to be a real type of interaction in its truest sense. It might be real in proximity, but not in its fullness. You know what I mean? It ceases to become a real event and becomes more of a performance, I would say.
I would argue it happens every time we have at least a considerable amount of people who are watching us. Mm-hmm. Because there is I would say maybe looking at this picture, 10, 15 people who was watching the interaction. Mm-hmm. So even those people being present there, I would feel add into the performance of it, not in a negative way, but, even unconsciously it would happen.
Of course.
And the camera would add to it. I think that's possible. Yeah.
Of course. I'm arguing with a man and he calls me a bitch and I might let it go. Yeah. I'm arguing with a man, he calls me a bitch in front of my son. Then it becomes different, right? Yeah. I'm arguing with a man, he calls me a bitch in front of my son and a live recording video stream. Then it's, of course, a different reaction and all different things. And I'm not saying it might go into a fight, but there are different reactions because I'm aware of different types of eyes that are on. And it's the same thing here with, Basel's father, Abu Asel, running with, this Israeli soldier right here.
I mean, it doesn't make what he's saying untrue.
Right. No, it doesn't make
there's still that validity in what they're defending and saying.
Right, so. Right. The point I was just making with the cameras is that, the slow displacement of the Palestinian people has been heavily documented with cameras, right? And people are aware that the media is very important in both sides of the project, whether you want to see Palestinians regain their land or whether Israel takes it. People also are aware that not only the bombs and guns and bulldozers are needed, but the cameras and public opinion and perception are needed as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on, we are with the family. And what was the little girl's name?
Doha.
We see Doha and his... Her and her grandmother, I believe, or mom.
Doha.
Just laying down, we see the footage of her playing around the house. It feels almost like, she's obviously aware that they lost their home, but she's still being a kid, running around playing with toys and things like that. And, her grandmother is trying to encourage her to think positive. I guess. And meanwhile, the guys in the village, Basel, Yuval, and the other guys in the family, they're trying to rebuild the houses. They're joking with Yuval saying he's a spy. And they're also talking about how hard it is to work. I think even Basel says I hate working. I must be Netanyahu's son. And they're it's like this kind of having fun working, it's like you have to smile and joke at the end of the day kind of vibe that's going on. It's bittersweet, but there's also some connection that's happening between them, all working together, and they cover up their work like with this green blanket to make it seem like grass, I guess. And they sit down and they're talking, and this guy is skeptical of Yuval, and he says, Arabs built for you and you destroyed them. I don't know if I can trust you. So he's kind of, once again, letting his steam out of Yuval, and Yuval doesn't say anything. He's just silent.
Yeah, this guy here, and the fact that many of the Arabs are dependent on the Israelis for work. I believe it was Basel who says in this scene, like, he paid for his university studies by working in the Israeli territories, right? And many of the Arab men, they have no other choice but to go to Israel to get jobs and stuff like that. And going back to Yahya Sinwar's book, that is argued to be another type of displacement, taking away their economic autonomy and making people work for you is another way of making them your subjects, making them your objects that you can, move as you want. You know what I mean? So it was very interesting what he was saying to him. And all of these guys, are master builders with their hands, man. They be building at night. They rebuild a whole entire school at night. You know what I mean? New homes, everything.
Yeah, I mean, and once again, there was like this, fact of the homes, like talking about homes. And he also says like, oh, you're going to go back home, you all? And he was like, yeah, I'll probably go have a shower. And, there's this look on his face like, these people probably won't be able to take a shower or something like that. And we also see the family, eating bread for dinner, and the grandmother is laughing like, we're eating bread for dinner, ha ha ha. Like, it's like, I don't know.
It's just even in the face of all this despair, people still find reasons to laugh, reasons to smile, and there's still joy to be had. You have to laugh every day. If you don't laugh that day, you have a bad effect on your psychology. Yeah. So, these people still find ways of keeping themselves mentally happy in there. And they got family, too. That's the thing,
Yeah, but moving on, we see Yuval and Basel, they're riding in the car, and they're talking about their, past, what they studied. And Basel is asking Yuval, what were you doing? And Yuval is basically saying they wanted me to be in the intelligence in the army because I knew Arabic. But I didn't want to do it. And then he's asking me, how did you even learn Arabic? And apparently he took some classes in college. And he says, learning Arabic really changed my views. And I denied the opportunity to go to the army and things like that. So they're discussing Yuval's past a little bit here. And then we just see Basel back at the house working at his dad's gas station. And I just put this scene here because you can see the tag. If I go disappear, you can see the tag, which is in Israeli, writing. And throughout the movie, everything you sort of see that is material has like some sort of Israeli tag on it, and things like that, which shows economically also how much they have to be dependent on Israel. Like even buying a car, they can't do it themselves. They can't produce it themselves. And everything is very limited.
That's a very good point. That's a good observation. And going back to Yuval, as he was in the car talking about, learning Arabic changed his views. I think that's interesting how a language can open a door to different perspectives you didn't have. And I'm pretty sure growing up in Israel, if you only know Hebrew or English, right, you're absorbed into a world that tells you that, everything your people are doing are right, your nation is right, your country is the best, etc. But that other language can, flip the script on his ass. You know what I mean? So that's very dope. What'd you think?
Yeah, it kind of reminded me like of those, I don't know, like language videos where I used to watch, and it's like, what are different slangs for different, like, nationalities in different languages. So I don't know, like, the Balkan people say smoke like a Turk and things like that, how different it is. And that's become like a conversation with me and my friends from other nations, right? And how your culture, your history shapes your language. And through learning a language, how much you can understand. Like, as someone who speaks two languages, like my native language and English, like, even though English is an international language now, it's still very much connected to American culture, at least for me, because I learned American English, right? So it really helped me to be immersed in the American culture. And sometimes I regret that, but, it does give you, like, this double brain.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, as a monolingual person, but with an affinity for one language, and I studied it deeply, it does help you realize, there are different perspectives in the world and different, I think, languages represent the same general things for people, like a way to communicate and convey, but it does also carry culture with it, right? Because everything in this world carries the culture that it comes from.
But moving on, we see once again another, incident happening, and then we see Yuval also getting involved and talking to the Israeli soldiers, and Israeli soldiers are like asking him, "Why do you care?" And he says, "I care because it's all done in my name." And then the incident happens where we see a man get shot because of a generator, because they're demolishing his house and he's trying to save this one generator, and he gets shot. His mom is, crying and trying to explain what is happening, and we see that he's in the hospital for everything that happened to him. And once he gets out of the hospital, his name is Haran, people gather in the village and they do a little protest for him, and for also West Bank and Palestine. But then, even then, the Israelis come and they, shoot some, gas bombs at them and things like that. And in the protest, you can see it's like mostly very, very young people, children, literally children, like 10, 12-year-olds doing the protests and walking. So, yeah.
So, at this scene, when Yuval says, "I care because it's all done in my name," that's when I stood up and clapped. Because that's one of the hardest lines you could ever drop, like, as an ally. As a real ally, that's what you should be saying. Like, I don't like, Zionism because it makes me as a Jewish person look bad. I don't like American imperialism because it makes me as an American look bad. I don't like sexism because it makes me as a man look bad, et cetera, right? This is one of the hardest things you could ever say. So shout out to Yuval for that. And as far, if there was any point in the film where I was almost about to cry, it was the Harun storyline. So Doha is also Harun, and the fact that her son got shot over a generator and then he's paralyzed from the neck down, can barely move and communicate, man, that was so hard for me to watch, because one of my biggest fears is being paralyzed, especially like from the waist down. You know what I mean? And what happened to Harun is so tragic, so tragic. And it's, no mother should have to see their son suffer like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It was one of the most heartbreaking points throughout the documentary. It's even hard to look at it right now. It's insane how, like, easy life can be destroyed, and then how hard it is to, turn it back. And all because of, power, in the name of power.
And going back also to, like, the camera angle that we were talking about before, Harun's getting shot was caught wide on camera, and the people that did it never suffered any consequences for it.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. But it's also interesting, once again, how, Harun became sort of a cause célèbre for the people there. Like, they put his face on banners. They have their own Palestinian Lives Matter protest, and Harun is like their, Trayvon Martin. So
Yeah, yeah. But continuing on, we see a couple of times throughout the movie Basel going to his, going back to his house and just debriefing to his family, especially his father. And he's saying that in the protest today, a soldier told me to watch out, and he told me that they were gonna put me in jail and things like that. And then once again, we see, these two, Yuval and Basel, in the car. They're traveling around, and Basel is saying, like, you're too, like, enthusiastic. You want to end the occupation now. You're talking about, like, this article you wrote about Harun, and it didn't get views. Like, revolution doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen in one day. You are, like, he's kind of a little bit saying, like, you're kind of delusional. You want to save everything. You want to do everything, but it's just not the way it is. And Yuval is sort of taken aback at first. He's saying, like, oh, do you think I don't want to be here? But then he sort of understands what Basel means, like, in the sense that revolution doesn't happen in one day, or just like that. My people have been suffering for many, many years. So, yeah.
So, it's so crazy that Basel is sort of like anticipating, like, at any moment he could die, you know what I mean? Or he could be taken away. And it just reminds me of, once again, not trying to censor my experience, but like as Black men in America, we sort of live with this existential dread that death is around the corner at any moment. Jail is right around the corner at any moment, right? And this, I imagine, is also a creeping feeling a lot of white men are beginning to have. But as a Black man, like for me, even though I'm not even living in America right now, I leave my house every day prepared to die. You know what I mean? Not in the sense that, I'm going to do something that is going to put me under the ground. But like that is a real, understanding in my head, like any moment I could die. And I should be prepared for that. You know what I'm saying? And it seems like Basel is living with that same sort of fear as well. The police are directly threatening him. We're going to come arrest you. And as far as the Yuval conversation right here, it reminded me of like, every time a woke liberal white person discovers some cause, they say, oh, we need to fix this right now. We need to speak to the manager. Who's the manager in the West Bank? And I felt like Basel was kind of like teasing Yuval in the sense. But Yuval is like, I need to write these articles. If I write these articles and tell these stories, more people will find out about this and it's going to stop, right? And I don't think Yuval is that naive, but I think that's how Basel is taking it when Yuval is talking about, we got to write these articles and get them out about what's happening here.
Yeah, yeah. And Yuval is like not popular at all because he's writing for not the Jewish, but the Zionist society.
Yeah.
So yeah, like he doesn't really have a lot of fans in Israel.
Yeah.
But yeah, just when I saw this scene, I was thinking, damn, he's probably my age, and he has to live in fear of being put in jail. Because anyone, I feel like, who's ever been in a protest have felt that rush of like police being near you and, I don't know, your possibility of getting arrested, getting beat down or anything like that. And that's sort of his daily life, basically, which is a lot. But yeah, later on at night, they see the Israeli soldiers come around their houses, and they get suspicious. And basically, Basel runs away and hides out in a part of the village. And the soldiers come into Basel's house, and I believe his father also hid somewhere else. And they looked for Basel, they didn't find him, and they went out. But I felt like that was just a show of power. And if they really wanted to find Basel, that they would have. But yeah, basically everyone around their house comes out, and it's, almost sun up, and they're talking about what is happening, and they're explaining Basel what happened and things like that. Yeah, but what did you think?
There were two very funny scenes about this because, like you said, it was a show of force by the Israelis. They come in the middle of their night with their tanks and armored cars and stuff like that. And they came specifically to arrest Basel because he was at the protest earlier the day when they were tearing down houses. And there was a really funny scene. We don't have it clipped here, but one of the Israeli soldiers sees Basel and says, "Who you filming, bitch?" And they try to run at Basel, but Basel jets off. He jets off like Usain Bolt. It is so fire. It's one of those things. I was like, yeah. If we were watching this in the theaters, I would have been up like, yeah, run, Basel, run. And there's a funny scene here because this lady says, they came here asking, where's Basel? Ween Basel. And I said, I don't know. I don't know, Basel. She said, I ain't seen shit. I don't know shit. That shit was funny as hell.
Yeah. It was just also, I don't know if this is like my Turkish mom mind working, and I'm not a mother, but yeah, it's like there was also a scene where his mom was like, go put on a coat because you're going to be cold. And then Basel ending up like at night just hiding in a little place outside, and he was cold. Guess what? And his mom was right. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Anyway, then we see some footage from Basel's social media of what is happening in his village. The same lady, Harun's mom, she's trying to get help for her son. She's trying to take him to the hospital, get medicine, but she's unable to drive. They stop her. They take her driver's license and things like that. Yeah.
Just to stop right here, let's just break down this scene right here. A policeman says Palestinians can't drive here. And people still argue today that this is not an apartheid state. Think about how that sentence plays out in any other context. Black people can't drive here. Women can't drive here. Latinos, immigrants, Muslims, Jews can't drive here, can't live here. And people still really unironically say Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. What is democratic about an apartheid state? Palestinians cannot drive here, cannot live here, cannot go here. That's so, that should make you, and it's touching for me because, my father was born in a hospital that was Negroes only. I found out when I got older, my father wasn't actually born in Alabama. He was born in Tennessee because they had to cross the border to go to the Negro hospital. You know what I mean? My father told me stories of the white police officers telling him black kids can't walk on the sidewalk to school. Black people can't walk here. You know what I mean? So this is really infuriating for me to see this blatant racism. This is blatant textbook racism. And it's so disturbing.
It is. It's very dehumanizing as well. It's also right after he says this, he says it in Jewish, and then he turns
Jewish in Hebrew.
In Hebrew, sorry. In Hebrew, and then he turns to another person and says, "There, translated."
Wow.
So it's not even he's not even directly understanding this woman or communicating with this woman. And he's doing through another person, which I feel like I don't even know how it's possible even at this moment, but it just deconnects them. I don't know. There isn't much to say other than you're absolutely right. This is an apartheid state, and the Palestinians are, her condition is literally caused by another Israeli soldier. Her son was shot by an Israeli soldier, and now she's unable to go get medicine for her son or take her son to the hospital because she's a Palestinian and can drive on the lane. Frustrating. Continuing on. We see Basel's post, just posting about different types of demolitions that they're doing. And it's also he's shining the light on we don't know who are they coming for. They just show up and then they demolish someone's house. And yeah, every day people are basically living in fear. And then we see Basel, in his house waking up, and his mom says that an insane sentence that you would say to your son, like, "I washed your clothes. If you go to jail, you'll have clean clothes." I feel like that's such a dark, situation to be in, knowing that your son might go to jail and having to prepare him for it. But yeah, what did you think about that?
In a lot of ways, just minus the fact he's documenting occupation and oppression, Basel is like the average, Gen Z NEET. Like, he's living at home. His mama is bitching at him. He's a social media fiend. He's probably up in inboxes saying "show boob."
Wow.
But at the same time, he's doing great advocacy work. But we got to see them DMs, Basel. We know you be hollering at some Slovenians talking about, "So you sexy, yeah?"
Wow. I don't want to think about that part.
I'm just saying, what if Basel hopped in your DMs talking about, "You cute." Wow. Me no English, but you cute.
I mean, you're right about one part, that he is an average, young adult, I guess, or a 20-something, because, we see him, rushing around the house, trying to go somewhere, his mom, bitching at him, eat something, put some clothes on.
He's like, "Mom, I got these posts to make."
Yeah, and he's like, "I don't want to wake up," So there's, some normalcy, I guess, as much as it can be.
Mom, I got 2,000 likes.
Okay. But yeah, I guess building on what you were talking about, there's this conversation between Basel and Yuval. And Yuval asks Basel, "Why are you always on your phone?" And he's like, "I'm stressed. What else can I do besides being on my phone? I don't have anything else to do." And they start talking about, what if you get a job? Didn't you study law? And he says, "Our economy's ruined. I'm only able to work in construction work in Israel, and that's also the only place I can find work in." And yeah, he just looks sad, feels sad, sounds sad, and kind of hopeless. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because Yuval is probably a traditionally trained journalist, ready to write real well for, fancy media, and then also explain the points eloquently on, CNN and stuff like that in English and in Hebrew. Meanwhile, Basel is like the mirror of Yuval if Yuval grew up in Masafer Yatta. You know what I mean? If Yuval, by the flip of a coin and the genetic lottery, lost and ended up on the other side, he would be Basel. Educated but not prepared. Unfortunately, the wrong ethnic group, the wrong religion to have access to the bountiful economic opportunities and stuff like that. It's like looking at Bizarro World. You know what I mean? Looking at you in another lifetime. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And I think it also, this point that people sometimes make, why don't you work for it? Why don't you educate yourself? Why don't you go to college and lift up your people? These people do it. Others do it. Why can't you do it? And it kind of sort of proves that point wrong. Is you have Basel here who studied law, but he can't even practice it because the systems that he's in, the apartheid he's in, is not allowing him to even study and work the way he should, and therefore he's consumed with social media, and this is what he's have to do. But
in a way, because Basel has less to work with, he is more innovative in a way than Yuval, right? Because Basel's idea is I'm just going to post everything on social media. I'm going to try to get as much attention and traction on Facebook, Instagram, whatever I can. And meanwhile, Yuval is struggling to get 10 people to read his articles on whatever site he publishes on. You know what I mean? So it goes to show, once again, one of the things that makes us all human is that you notice oppressed people always find the most innovative ways of media, communication, or new transformative types of culture and things like that. So I think Yuval is sort of like, learning from Basel actually in this thing. You know what I mean? He's not only learning about the plight of his people, of the Palestinian people in the West Bank, he's also learning this is what, happens when you give somebody nothing and see them try to make something, which is what Basel does. He does the majority of the filming in this thing. He's the one, putting his life on the line to document these events that are happening. And Yuval is actually sitting with a master journalist in front of him, somebody who learned the real thing through the streets, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And in this scene, Yuval actually says that, like, I inspire your hope. I don't know what I would do if I was in your shoes. But then, we hear Basel saying, like, yeah, maybe, but I feel like sometimes I really feel depressed. I feel depression in me, which is really real. Like, how could you not in this situation where everything is taken from you? Every day you see destruction, discrimination, people being killed, people getting, paralyzed. And it is just very dark. So it is an insane defense mechanism, like mental defense mechanism to have to being able to deal with these things. And I think he does it through his family, his community, but also like through fighting for things and actually doing things like this documentary, and even before that, like being active on his social media.
Yeah. I mean, this scene with, Basel and Yuval smoking hookah and having like this, very emotional, revelatory type of conversation, it reminds me of like, my time in Tunisia and having like long talks with people late into the night. We're not smoking hookah, smoking something else and drinking and talking shit. And you notice that, a lot of young Arab people feel like this fatalism, this sort of nihilism towards the world because of all the factors around them that sort of make life hard. Not only, is Yuval dealing with, the fact he's living under occupation and oppression, like it's just hard being like a young Arab person in like the developing world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there's so many forces that just don't want you to succeed and just, thrive and grow,
Yeah. And it also makes me think of the concept of future, because I feel like as we live, like you and me, we both have aspirations for the future, right? We want to go to this university. We want to have this degree. We want to have this kind of job, this kind of house. And I feel like in his situation, he can't really dream about the future unless this apartheid is solved. And, it's really like a hard thing to be solved as nothing is happening today.
Yeah.
So, if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, then you're just in dark.
And there's also what I think going on with Basel is that he doesn't want to be a sellout. I think he knows with his law degree, he could go work in Israel. But the idea is like, I'm not just going to, give up on my people, my village, my home to go work for the Israelis and make good money, but, abandon what I believe in.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of unsaid. Now, I'm not exactly sure if that's the case. He could work in Israel, but it doesn't make sense to even get a law degree if you couldn't use it in somehow. You know what I mean? Like a law degree in almost any country is a ticket to the middle to upper class. So, I do think there's a degree of, I don't want to sell out, bro.
Yeah, possibly. I also don't know like how that job, finding situation would work. Because
there is no secondary Palestinian legal system. Everybody in the occupied West Bank is subject to Zionist Israeli law. And in fact, actually, to be frank, if you're an Israeli who is arrested in the West Bank, you go to the civilian jail, you get arrested by the police and go through the traditional process. If you're a Palestinian man arrested in the West Bank, you're arrested by the military court. And so you have no real legal rights because you're a combatant under law. You know what I mean?
I mean, he did say like the only work he can find was construction. So I feel like if he would be able to find a law job that also, doesn't betray his people, he would have done it. But obviously that was not the case.
I think he would view all of them, all of the job opportunities in Israel as being a sort of like betrayal.
Yeah, probably.
Because it didn't seem like he enjoyed, the construction work he did.
Yeah. But yeah, continuing on, we go back to the story of Harun as well. We see that now he's out of the hospital, but he's paralyzed. And he's also, I guess, looking at this scene, he says, is somebody coming? He's probably under the trauma of everything that happened to him. They carry him inside the cave, and he just looks sad because this is a young man. Like, I believe he looks in his 30s. So it was just sad to see like such a young life being wasted because of something so horrible but also meaningless. But yeah, and I'm not saying like, the reason he was fighting is meaningless. It's just what was happening to him is meaningless because it shouldn't have been happening in the first place. But yeah, they also show some footage of, the mother facing the Israeli soldiers saying, nobody covers the treatments for my paralyzed son. You won't allow me to drive and get the medicine. I don't know what to do. And, it's almost heartbreaking. She also says like, come, my son, my dear, and visit my cave where my paralyzed son is laying in and see it for yourself. And they just sort of ignore her.
Yeah, Harun's story is like nightmare fuel for me. And one of the things I noticed whenever they showed the Israeli soldiers is like how many women and also how many people of color are in the IDF. And I find that so disturbing because, Israel is no different. It's a patriarchal, sexist society. And I know everybody is forced to go into the IDF, whether they be man or woman. So everybody serves there. But, it's hard for me to see, people that are a part of marginalized groups be a part of the oppression of other marginalized groups. You know what I mean? When I looked at this film and I saw black IDF soldiers, very dark-skinned IDF soldiers, I'm like, bro, you know better than this, man. But sometimes it be your own people. What we say, all skin folk and kinfolk. And, the biggest defenders of oppressive systems sometimes are the people who are oppressed by them. Uncle Toms, they be everywhere, man.
I mean, that's so like ironic because Jewish people have been oppressed so much throughout the history. And, they are the perpetrators of violence and discrimination in this case that is happening now in Israel and Palestine. So,
oh, the irony.
Yeah. But continuing, they show us some footages that is circulating around the Western media. They show us people, supporting Palestine, and also Basel and Yuval kind of getting more attraction in the media, both in Western media and also in Israeli and Palestinian media. We see like Yuval going into Israeli, I guess, talk shows and things like that and defending Palestinians, and they call him like he's a self-hating Jew. The Palestinians don't have a right to be in that land. And they don't have any rights. So what they are doing is correct, and all things like that. And he's trying to, defend Palestinians.
Yeah, I thought the TV appearances of Yuval were very funny because the reactions of the people, they were just like, oh my God, it's like Zionist MAGA. He's like coming with like cogent arguments, and they just come with ad hominems and say, you are a bad Jew. I want to see the whole clips. I just want an hour-long clip montage of Yuval going on Israeli TV debating with the redneck Zionists.
Yeah. I mean, he's really courageous, but I feel like they were just putting him on there. It's like the debates they have on YouTube, like one liberal and 20 like
Fascist.
fascists. So it's like that, Yuval is one pro-Palestinian and then like 30 Zionists attacking him all at the same time. So automatically he's gonna look bad in the minds of the Zionists,
Yeah. But Yuval's position translated to my country's context would be like one white American guy standing up and saying, we should give the land back. And just letting the whites tear his ass apart. Yeah.
He said,
what would be the equivalent in your country of somebody taking a
same? We should give the Kurds part of our land, like their land back, and then watch them tear him apart.
Watch them tear his ass apart. Watch them get him. Oh my God.
But the funny thing is, in my country, it would be both the left and the right
getting on his ass. Yeah. In my country, the right would tear his ass apart, and the left would say, "We should do something about that."
But not that.
We should, yeah.
But not the land, but something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, continuing on, we see these sort of heartfelt conversation between the two friends, and Basel is like, I know I'm in danger of getting arrested and things like that, but I just cannot stop, because if they arrest people, this is what the Israelis want. If we give up, if we stop protesting and everything, it's all for nothing. So we have to keep on going. And then they have another conversation where Basel tells, like, we should run away together and go somewhere. And Yuval's like, where would we go? And Basel says, to the Maldives. And then they hear like a donkey screaming in the background. And Yuval says, here the donkey's laughing at your idea. And there are like these little moments of, sincere comedy, I guess, of humor that is kind of heartwarming. It's just a bromance moment,
More than a bromance. It's real. It's real. Broke West Bank Mountain.
No, but I mean, imagine like, this is the one person that you're venting to, that understands you and also is trying to help you.
And he's cute and smells good.
Okay, I'm not going with this plot.
I'm just saying there was a lot of flirty activity there.
They're young, like, men who are just friends.
He's not gay, he's European.
Anyway, going back to Harun's family, this is his daughter, I believe, and they're still living in the cave. But we see her going to school the next day, and in the school, they're learning stuff. And then we get another flashback of how the school was first built in the first place. And it started with the protests, of course. The Palestinians wanted to build a building for the school, and Israelis were against that. But again, during the day, the women were working in the construction and children. And then during the night, the men were working in the construction, and they were able to build a building for that. And that's actually the school Basel went to. And this is like, we see a footage of, him, an older footage. And also this is a school that made international news. And I forgot this guy's name.
Tony Blair.
Yeah, Tony Blair, UK's prime minister at the time, came and visited. And because he visited this area, the school, Israel canceled the demolition orders. And Basel basically says, this is the story about power. Yeah.
So, Tony Blair showing up in this scene was also interesting because only 7 yards away was Basel's father. And that goes to show this issue of Masafer Yatta is not just some backwater place. You know what I mean? This was a place that gained so much attention that the most powerful man in the UK, other than the Queen, right? And the Queen is not a man, but you get what I'm saying. The most powerful person in the UK literally walked the streets there. And Basel's father has been so trill, so real, so gangster. He was outside when Tony Blair walked the street. That's so cool. That was so cool to me. But also goes to show, like, how politics is played in the Middle East. Like, Tony Blair shows up and he's only there for like 7 minutes and then leaves. And then, meanwhile, Basel's father has to still live there and watch the land get demolished. And, it feels like these Western politicians that have the most influence on this place really don't use their influence to actually make meaningful changes, only just for like Band-Aids over the major wounds and cuts in these places, right? Yeah, let the school be built, but never mind about the land literally being stolen all around it. You know what I mean?
I mean, this scene with, like, someone politically influential and famous coming in and creating this momentarily peace environment.
Yeah.
It showed me, like, really how much the European powers, the Western powers can do. And it just, like, automatically, made me think of Gaza and how much actually they can do to stop, but they just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just the reality.
Yeah.
They can sit in their offices and say, we recognize that there's a genocide, and still don't do shit.
Yeah, because he's walking among land where, he's seen destruction. You know what I mean? But even to this day, Tony Blair has yet to go. Excuse me. Pardon. This man makes me sick because Tony Blair is actually a genocidal war criminal like George Bush. He helped invade Iraq and Afghanistan and helped cause numerous civilian deaths. Tens of thousands of people needlessly in Iraq lost their lives due to American and British bombs. So fuck Tony Blair with all the force of Satan's dick. But still, the fact that he came here shows that, people are blind to the oppression around them and maybe are beholden to forces that tell them that, what you're seeing might be bad, but what can you really do about it? You know what I mean? Don't push us,
Yeah, and plus, in addition to, how most of the politicians are two-faced liars.
Yeah.
It also shows, like, how the institution of Israel is sort of, sucking up to the Western powers and making it seem like, at least at that time, because at this time, October 7th didn't happen yet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just like telling us how they're making themselves look in the world stage, and then how they are acting and covering up their tracks of discrimination, genocide, and everything else.
Absolutely. And finally, most importantly, I would argue, this is a blatant example of white supremacy, because the people who are living there, the brown-skinned Palestinian people who have been saying, stop tearing up our land, stop killing us, stop displacing us, the Israelis looked at him and said, shut the fuck up, you gonna take this dick. White man shows up, walks there 7 minutes, okay, the school can be built, they can live there, it's okay. Is that not a double standard? Is that not blatant white supremacy?
That is absolutely, because only Tony Blair can fix this.
Only a white man can fix it. A white man came, the most powerful white man came from the UK and said, this is wrong, this is a tragedy. Oh, you're right. It's a tragedy. So, anyway.
But yeah, continuing on, one day the villagers wake up and this is a place near Basel's house, and they hear the construction coming. And everyone is like, whose house they're going to destroy next? Are they going to destroy the little bird house? And that's what they do. They come in, they basically demolish the animal houses that they have, sort of also killing the animals there or letting them go away and run away. And then there's, they start fighting with Basel and Basel's father. And they catch Basel, and Basel's like, I have a journalist card. You can't do this to me. I'm recording you. And you can see, like, his mother, also begging the Israeli soldiers, don't touch my son, don't do that. And then right there, Basel's father comes to his rescue and says, stop it, shoot me. And then he says, run, Basel, run again. And Basel also starts running and saves himself from what's happening.
Basel. Stop the documentaries and train for the Olympics. This is the fastest man alive. How you dodge them Israeli bullets, bruh? Because you know them bullets was whizzing past his ear and all types of shit, man. He was dodging them shits like Neo in the Matrix. My guy was how you outrun the feds twice. He outran the feds twice, my guy. That's a legend, street legend. Yo, I need a pair of Nikes called Basels. With just him on the cover like this, just running in the bus. Wow. You'll never get caught by the police in the Basels.
I mean, what else can he do? Like, he has to run for his life.
Dog, he needs a brand endorsement, stat. Air Basels.
Okay, American, chill.
Puma, get that man on the line, stat.
Anyway, so all this happens, but I guess that sort of puts Basel's father on the spot, and they come and arrest Basel's father.
Damn,
and also another man that looks very old, and there's a scene of I believe his daughter sort of yelling at the Israeli police, don't take him, but they take both. And then Yuval and Basel are talking, and Yuval's like, damn, I can't believe that happened. And Basel's like, yo, I've had this my whole life. My father has been arrested many times before. It happened a lot. But now I think I have to take a break from the activism because I have to stay home and I have to, work at the gas station, provide for my family. It's just for a little while. But yeah.
Yeah, so, I wonder if Basel ever feels guilt for, his father suffering and struggling. Just the fact that, his, sometimes kids feel that guilt. Like, damn, our parents are poor. Our parents are messed up because, they have to take care of us. I wonder if he ever feels that guilt. And on top of that, I wonder if he ever feels bad for his dad because his dad spent his whole life struggling, fighting for the liberation of their people. And here he is, with a kind of shitty gas station and barely enough money probably to give his kids the life that they deserve. You know what I mean? I wonder, because that's sort of like hinted at throughout their interactions. All we see is love, between the two. But I wonder if there ever is like those weird feelings Basel might have for his father. Because later on in the film, he does say, I'm scared to become my father. And what is that? Just, you're scared to just be another old Arab man railing against the state that you're powerless against, you know what I mean? So, I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I guess we'll talk about that more in that scene as well, but yeah, I feel like for me, this moment, and I don't think you know this about me, but it reminded me, and once again, also like you, I don't want to make this about myself, but it was just like, these personal connections we have to this movie. And it reminded me, my mom was actually like taken by the police from our house.
I didn't know that.
And it's not anything like big, but it was basically like someone in my family did some financial shit.
Oh yeah, okay, I know the story.
And they came, and he left the country. So they came for my mom because he left the country, and they took her, and I think they kept her like for one night or something. And I was so scared, and I was a little kid. But I feel like, no matter how old you get, and also no matter how, for his case, no matter how much that happened, he knows like how Israeli prisons are and how they treat Palestinians, and he mentions it a little bit, like it's emotional torture and things like that. And just imagine and thinking someone in your family, and on top of everything, your dad having to go through that. It's just a lot. I don't think he feels guilt because he's not the person that put him in this position. And I feel like his father let him know that because his father was an activist. And it's not them, it's the Zionist system that's, putting them in this position. But I do feel now that his father is gone, at least at this time, he feels an immense amount of responsibility because he had all of his activist work he was able to do because of his father's economic situation, owning a gas station. So now he's like, I can't do this anymore because now I kind of have a family to take care of.
I also wonder if like poverty is a big deal, in this sense, because when he says I have to work in the gas station to provide for my family, you know what I mean? It's like he feels like, damn, I'm stuck in the same boat my father left me in, barely struggling to make it. And that's because we're choosing to take a principled stand to not work for the Israelis. We'd rather starve and suffer than to sell out, you know what I mean, and move to Hebron or, God forbid, Tel Aviv, whatever, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think he is, in general, I would say he's proud of like how his father and the people around him stands up for their own land.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's always that mind, like that thought in the back of your head saying like, I can just go, or I can just give up. And I feel like that happens to everyone.
Yeah.
But you just stick out.
Yeah.
You just continue.
Yeah. I think one more thing, though, about this documentary, like there are very few documentaries where the documentarian gets fucking abused on screen. You know what I mean? Where a part of the spectacle, because the documentary is usually somebody else telling the tragedy of the story, the narrative, through their lens, and they're not a part of it. But throughout this film, we get, Basel being the subject of, the Israeli abuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is which is what makes this film, so real. You know what I mean? Like, because it comes for everybody. I have a journalist card, so we're from the country that has the #1 record in killing journalists. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we don't give a fuck what protections you have. Like, so many Americans have been killed since October 7th in the West Bank and in Gaza. There was a young Palestinian man from Louisiana, my own state, beaten up and murdered by the IDF, just similar to this. And also in Gaza, there have been at least, a few hundred American citizens who have been murdered during this genocide that Israel has waged. You know what I mean? So there is no protection for people in this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there is none.
And
also, like, just today I heard a story as well about like this journalist who was journaling throughout Gaza, reporting and recording everything, but he had to leave the country because he was that scared for his life, and he was being actively seeked out and targeted by Israeli forces.
Yeah.
And then when he actually left, Israeli media and Zionist institution basically said, oh, he doesn't love his country enough.
Wow.
He left.
Wow, that's crazy. You don't love it enough to die in it under a pile of rubble, because apparently Hamas is living under the basement. It's crazy. Absolutely insane. But go ahead.
Moving on, Basel says he's not going to he's not going to do a lot of activism. So when Yuval hears about news about this new house getting demolished, he says, I'm going to go. And he goes there. And there's kind of like a scene where when he's going there, he's walking there, right? And there are 2 Palestinian guys sitting on a little hill. And he says, hey, do you know where this address is? And then he asks them, do you have a car? Can you take me? And they're like, the Jews took our cars. And then he walks, and once he's there, he's getting attacked by the Zionists as well. There's this, baby boomer Zionist who says, like, I'm recording you. You are the Jew who helps them. They're going to pay you a visit, and you're going to hear from my people.
Wow.
And then there's also, I thought this was a very striking scene as well. There's this very, very young child standing up against an Israeli soldier telling him, you came to destroy my house. And then the Israeli soldier, like, sits him down and tells him, like, don't move from here. And I feel like you can feel the fear in his face, but yet he was still brave enough to, stand up against him. And that was very moving.
I mean, it's one of the things I would criticize this film of, even though the point of this film is to document, the removal and expulsion of these people. But you know, these scenes are like so dramatic. Like this scene gets really intense with the Jews like all surrounding Yuval and saying, you traitor, we're going to come pay you a visit. And this scene as well with the young boy facing down the soldier, they're so intense that they feel like the climax of the film. And then you realize, oh shit, it's only the 45-minute mark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, for somebody like me who's used to watching, you know, traditional narrative drama, you know, where the climax is sort of like at the end and that's the most action and intensity you feel. Like this film feels like very, very intense, low, very, very, very fucking intense, low. You know what I mean? Oh my God, the world is ending. Oh God, that's not the end. You know what I mean? Like that's what these scenes felt like.
Definitely, because you have all these like in action moments where the emotions are very high, and then you have like these calm moments with Yuval and Basel like talking to each other, and some family moments and things like that. But even those lower moments have a lot of depth. I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, continuing on, they go to Hebron together, Basel and Yuval, and you know they're just eating and talking, and they started talking about their fathers. And families, and Basel says, you know, it scares me a little bit to end up like becoming my father. I don't think I have his energy, he says, and there's a flashback of like his father arranging trips in their neighborhoods, and they see an Israeli tank or military car passing them, and children are a bit scared, and he says, you know, don't be afraid of them. We have a special power. And he seems like, I don't know, like this summer camp guide or something. Like very joyful, happy, encouraging everyone, making jokes and things like that. This very cheerful man. And Basel says, you know, in this video, he's my age now. And he has a kid and a wife and all those things. And yeah.
Yeah, it's when I saw the flashback scenes and you could tell like that's baby Basel right there because he looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
I felt like, dog, they were planning their whole life to do like this documentary because it's so perfect. Even Basel's father sort of looks the same as he did back then. That man did not age really. But yeah, it's sort of crazy. Like his father, probably in Basel's mind, is like a towering figure. Like this guy seems like he was like the community leader, organizing trips for the whole community of Masafer Yatta to go to Disneyland, whatever they were doing back then. You know what I mean? And meanwhile, Basel probably feels like a failure because like many young men in this world, at this age, I'm 35, my dad already had a child, had 2 cars, a house, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, anyway, you know what I mean? So, yeah, he probably feels the way a lot of young men feel, that we can never be our fathers because our fathers were the last men to take advantage of late-stage capitalism.
Yeah. And, you know, I feel the same way because my mom is like, 50-something now, and she has so much energy. I feel like she could outrun me doing chores and running around and whatever. Than like me, 27 years old, you know, acting. And I do also feel like, you know, sometimes I don't think I'm going to age as energetic as my mom. I don't know like how she even does it. But definitely in this movie, I feel like Basel's father is almost like Superman.
Yeah.
Like he's portrayed as this really great guy standing up for his community, an activist, a loving father, welcomes everyone, playing with his children, his grandchildren, and things like that. So, yeah. And I know, like, obviously this is Basel's film, right? So there's probably, you know, a pinch of that, him wanting to, you know, make his father look good. But yeah, he just looks like a great man and a great father. Yeah.
On the scale from, I don't know, you know, the Homer Simpson scale, he's definitely up there. You know what I mean? As far as like close to Homer Simpson, as in like best dad. He's not the best TV dad. Homer is still the best TV dad. But, you know, Basel's father, he's up there. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he is very good. And I know nobody's perfect, but he's just...
Only perfect person is Homer Simpson.
Okay, Simon. I didn't know you were such a big fan of Homer Simpson. Anyway.
Oh shit! Here comes the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah. Basically, Basel like can't resist himself to record and be an activist, and he like just goes to film what's happening, and he sees that settlers are throwing rocks at this one house. And breaking the windows, and the soldiers, Israeli soldiers, is just standing, like watching the whole thing. Also, sort of like, I guess, protecting the settlers, doing all of this. And settlers, their faces are covered. You know, they're like a mob, and it's very terrifying. And actually, like right after this scene, one of them throws a stone at Basel, and his camera falls. So yeah, it was very scary and intense.
Especially the way they're dressed, like, you know, they're shirtless with, you know, shirts covering their faces and eyes. You know, in the Western media, they portray this to be the Palestinians. You know, we see the Palestinians as just these sort of, you know, renegade people without clothes, you know, barely with their ribs showing and stuff like that, throwing rocks while people point rifles at them. But, you know, this looks, you know, like the total opposite. It shows the vigilantism on the side of the settlers and the Israelis and stuff like that. And yeah, just seeing white hoods and faces as a black man, for me, that just makes me just feel like this is KKK inspired, which is why I said the Ku Klux Klan just showed up. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
God.
That shit is like, bruh.
Yeah.
That's bad.
That was terrifying.
Yeah.
And they're just attacking also like a random house where the mom is screaming like, "Why are you destroying my house?" Yeah. And also just the fact that soldiers are there and nothing is happening, there's no protection for them, is also very just, I don't know, it makes me panic, because those are the people who are supposed to help you, and obviously I guess we know that Jewish soldiers are not going to help Palestinians.
Yeah, and for me, you know, once again, not trying to center my story, but this scene reminds me of, like, you know, in the times when they would do lynchings and stuff like that. The police would be there guarding the lynching event, making sure nobody got too drunk or rowdy as you threw this black man on the tree, cut off his penis, and burnt his body. You know what I mean? Like, this sort of thing just reminds me of, like, the state collaborating with, you know, deputized men, mobs, assaulting people that are the targets of victimization. So, yeah.
Moving on, Basel's father gets out of jail, and, you know, they're celebrating, sort of taking a picture. He comes home, there's cake, and all of his children are there. And in that scene, I was just imagining, like, damn, this guy probably spent like a horrible, however many days he was in jail. And yeah, and he's having to come home and sort of having to put some sort of an act because his children are there.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to, you know, demotivate anybody.
No.
But yeah, then we sort of go back to the school's plot line, where now we see the school getting demolished. And there's a scene where the children are in the classroom, Israeli soldiers are seen coming, and one of the Israeli soldiers closes the door on the children as the bulldozer is entering the building, and the children have to actually get out from the window. And yeah, then they also, you know, try to stand up to the Israeli forces, but the school is gone.
Yeah, that scene when they close the door in on the kids and then you see the bulldozer coming through the window, that was scary as hell, man. And once again, this film will make you terrified of construction material. I mean, yeah, it's wicked, man. And especially, once again, I can't understand the mentality of these IDF soldiers. I think they have to go through intensive brainwashing to see this or be a part of this and not feel like they're doing something wrong. And that's why I think, you know, this is part of the reason I could never be a nationalist or something like that, because I could never justify, you know, organizing a society where we tell young people to help them commit atrocities and violence against people in the name of the state, in the name of a country. It's our land. We're defending our country by bulldozing a school.
Yeah.
What? Like, that's so confusing for me. I don't get that. And it makes me think about the one time I got called by this army recruiter. He called my house when I was about, 17 or something like that. I was about to graduate high school. So that's the fresh meat. That's when the recruiters for the military are trying to get, you in. And he called me up and he said, "You want to join the military, son?" I said, "Y'all kill black people all over the world." He said, "Black people? What?" Sorry. Brown people. Then I hung up. I was too woke as a kid, but I couldn't do it. So yeah.
Go little Simon.
Anyway.
But yeah, I agree. Like the amount of brainwashing you have to have in order to close the door on children is insane. Mm. That is insane. And once again, like the systematicness of everything, where they're attacking education. And then, like you said, they're able to say, "Oh, they're illiterate. They don't know how to read and write," while they're destroying the schools and all of the opportunities they can have to get education. So, yeah.
Yeah, once again, like we said, it's about further dehumanizing and degrading the people. Oh, the Arabs can't read. They can't write. You literally bulldoze their school. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And they even demolished their parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like it's a park with literally one slide.
Yeah.
And you demolish it.
Yeah. Nasty work.
Yeah. But continuing on, we have this guy again that was always skeptical with Yuval.
Yeah.
And he's basically saying, how can I be your friend? How can you be my friend when your brother or your friends who could be destroying my house? Mm. And they're having like this debate, and Yuval is like, "But don't think like that. Like, I'm trying to help you. I'm one of the good ones." He's trying to pursue this Palestinian man, and they're having sort of like a friendly discussion. And another man shows up and says like, "Yo, there's no time for debating. Like, please come, and we're doing construction." And they're trying to rebuild the school, I believe. Yeah. And he says, "Come on, let's continue our debate while we build this school." And he's talking like, now it's getting a bit hotter with everything. The tension is rising and people might not accept you here anymore. So, yeah. Yeah.
This guy, is always on Yuval's case, but I think he's playing an important role in reminding Yuval, like, this is something you got to do. The burden is on you, Yuval, to talk to your people. You know what I mean? And that's what allyship is about. So he's, pushing Yuval to say, your job is not only to come here and document what's happening to us, but it's about putting the pressure on your people. You know what I mean? Like doing what you were doing earlier. You're doing this in my name. You need to do more of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Spreading the awareness. But it is hard, to reverse the brainwashing. Yeah. Definitely.
But I think this guy also shows how hate, starts on the other side. You know what I mean? I said earlier, not all black people say we hate white people, but there are some. There were a group of black men who did go out and murder a few white people a few times just because they were white. Not all Palestinians hate all Jewish people, but there are some. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so this guy sort of represents, and I'm not saying he's there yet, but he's like looking at Yuval like, I'm so mad that this keeps happening. We build, you destroy. We build, you destroy. I just want to start destroying now. And that goes like, that's how hate begets hate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And there's also one other line that he says here as they're talking, and he says, "I don't have a life anymore. All I do is rebuild my home. I rebuild, you destroy, and I don't know what to do." And that just also shows like how important home is, and also how lost you feel without it, and how persistent they are, wanting to stay in their land, own their land, and things like that. So that also really touched me when we were watching it. But yeah, continuing on, there's this British guy that comes in with Basel and he's like, "Oh, I made a documentary, a podcast, whatever, about West Bank previously." And he comes and he's talking to Harun's family, Harun's mom, and Harun's mom is saying like, my son, he's devastated. He's irritated all the time. He doesn't want to see anybody. He can barely suffer through me, my interactions, and they want to see him, and they're like, we want to get a footage of him even if he's sleeping. They go inside, and Harun says, leave me, go out, I don't want you. And then there's this one last scene with the, I guess, cameraman or the microphone man, and they have a small like interaction here where he says, you're a brave woman, you're a brave mother. I have a son too, and I wouldn't know what I would do if this happened to me. And she, says, sometimes my brain shuts off. I don't know how to deal with everything. I wish I could give my life to my son. And there's just this, after he leaves, there's this moment of a footage of her just, saying, I hope his pain will soon end. And her crying, and this was so harsh and hard to watch.
Yeah, like Harun's story once again is the saddest part for me, and I think this part here with the interviewer saying like, I really sympathize with you. If I was in your situation, I'd go crazy too. But then at the end, he just shakes her hand and then leaves. It just it makes you feel a little bit like, the media is important in getting those messages out, but at the end, it's sort of like empty because it's just like you just made a video, you made a story that somebody might watch and forget, somebody might share it, somebody might click away in 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, like you never know what people's attention span will be like, And, yeah, just that scene of her crying, it's just like when we consume media, are we actually trying to gain some level of truth? Are we, watching something just for entertainment? Do we like just emotional torture porn? You know what I mean? It's like, the tears of a mother on screen crying over her paralyzed son who is shot unjustly over a generator. Like, okay, we have that image now, but what do we do with it? And it just feels so kind of empty. You know what I mean? I think one of the quotes I heard recently is like, leftists without any power can only do media studies. So leftists with no power just can only critique books, film, and articles. And so it feels like one of those things. It's like the people who are really against this now can only just say, look at Harun's mother. That's so wrong. That's so sad. Don't we feel bad for her as we watch the video of her crying?
Yeah, I think we also debated and talked about this in this part of the movie, but I definitely also felt some sort of irritation with Western media, Western journalism, and just how it's sort of, like you said, it's like misery porn, right? It's showing these people that are underprivileged while you get to go back to your privileged houses and homes. And yes, you are spreading the word. Yes, you're sharing a story, but what else are you doing? You're not really helping them out. And it is, in a way, objectification. I don't know, how you would say it. Fetishization of their pain and misery in a way, and it felt really, really like that in the scene. And I don't know if that was the intention, but to me, that's all I can think of when I watch this scene. Yeah. And of course, just it worked. It works because it's so much pain that she's enduring to being being forced to wish your son's death because of his condition is another level of pain a mother can have. So.
I guess that scene makes you feel like, okay, this is kind of exploitative because at this point in the film, if you're watching it objectively, you want the killing to stop. You want the demolitions to stop. You want somebody to make this stop. But the movie's like, nah, it ain't stopping. There's more, baby. There's more demolitions, more pain, more suffering. And so it just feels like at this point, you're just watching people cry and suffer for the sake of a guilty, sick fetish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's more like, that's the reality of it. It's a documentary. It's not a drama. You know what I mean? If this was a written story, and at this point in the film, somebody isn't trying to stop the bad guy, Elion with the bulldozer, you'd be like, dude, what are you doing? What is this movie?
Yeah.
But, that's why it feels that way, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, in a way, maybe it's also projecting, like me having to project onto the journalist here that I feel helpless, that I feel like I can't do anything, watching this in the comfort of my own house and feeling sad, and that literally does nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's also that part of it as well. But continuing on.
My God, these monsters,
more demolitions.
These monstrous machines. Look at these bulldozers out of control.
Yeah.
My God, I'm disappearing so y'all can see. Look at that. That's sick. That's somebody's home, yo.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, there's a lot of demolition footage in general. There's more, and now they also start attacking like the water as well. They are cutting off the pipes. They're drying out the wells. They're pouring like cements into their wells, destroying the farmland, the farms that they have. And yeah, we have like this narration from Basel saying, these people, they have two choices. They can endure what is happening to them, or they can leave their land. And if they leave their land, like that's it. They can never come back again, and it's gone. And they choose to endure.
If I remember right, the way this film got its name is that Harun says to one of the documentarians that come, she said, why don't you leave your land? And she says, there is no other land. This is our home. We have nowhere else to go. And I take that as meaning not only they have a spiritual attachment to the land or an emotional attachment to the land, it's also the fact that they are poor people that cannot just pick up and leave and go. Like that's like telling somebody in the poorest part of Turkey or Mississippi, hey, why don't you just leave the poorest part of Turkey or Mississippi? I got nowhere else to go. I have no family. I have no connections. This is my home and that sort of thing. But it also stems from like a stubbornness, a defiance, a resistance to the idea someone can just push you out of your land too.
Yeah. I definitely think like it's both, because this is what you know. Like if you grow up, especially I feel like if you're growing up in like rural areas, villages, that's the world that you know, and there's like, this little world that you have that is sort of, not as chaotic and disassociative as the big cities. So you grow up knowing everybody, knowing the land, knowing how to do certain things. And most people want to continue their lives like that, and where they were born, where they grew up. So and they also feel like, why should I leave my land? Yeah, which is pretty fair. But yeah, we have another heartfelt conversation about sort of marriage and life between Yuval and Basel. And
things get hot and steamy.
Basel says, like, when will we get married?
Ooh.
And Yuval is sort of shocked, and he asks, like, do you even want...
Basel.
Do you even want like a family? And then they talk about like, Yuval suggests like, is it the money? And Basel's like, it's not even just the money. It's a lot of things. There's no stability in this land. And then he says like, I don't know how everything's gonna happen. And here Yuval is once again sort of having like this optimistic worldview, like one day you will come and visit me, and not only I come and visit you. One day you will have permissions to do anything you want. One day it will be a democratic, place. So he's giving a bit of like, let's hold hands and walk off together to the sunset. But yeah, Basel is like, this has been happening for a long time, and I don't know when it will end, but it will end, because they shouldn't forget, the Israelis, the Zionists shouldn't forget how once they were also weak and they were also, discriminated. And they will never make Palestinians leave this land. And those are his sort of last words. It's like the last conversation they have.
This isn't a commentary, really, that I have to say about this part, but I just wonder how much, like, Arabs, especially in this region, know about Jewish history. You know what I mean? Like, because I think that would be so interesting to hear, an educated Arab person, you know what I mean? Or basically, generally anybody who's moderately educated, like a high school graduate. Like, what do you know about the Jews other than the fact they're the Israelis over there who maybe you don't like or don't even care about? You know what I mean? I would like to know how much people know about where the Jews came from. Because when he says this, he says, once upon a time they were weak. Like, what is he referencing exactly? Is it just in general, like, hey, Jews were once oppressed and ran out of countries and places? I don't know. I just find that interesting. I want to know that.
I feel like Holocaust is mostly known. I'm not saying everyone would know. And then I can't help, and I'm not trying to like turn this around, but I can't help like remember one of my Arab friends told me that like every Arab has a Nazi era because of Israel and how it treats Palestinians and other Muslim countries around itself. She told me like it fades away, but we have that era. So I'm guessing like, they would know about the Holocaust and like know what happened.
As a person who, went to high school in Turkey, did you learn much about Jewish history or the Jewish people, or is it just Holocaust?
I mean, I was lucky enough to study World War II, and we even, read Anne Frank's diary and things like that. And that is mostly centered around, the Holocaust. But with that, yes, we did learn a lot of history. Though I went to like a private American high school, so that's not the usual curriculum in Turkey. But, I feel like also Hollywood does a really good job.
Okay.
In terms of like, Hollywoodizing everything. And
Hollywoodizing.
Hollywoodizing.
I
just made up the word.
Hollywoodizing. I got you. Yeah. There was that recent movie, or the movie you made me watch recently, with who was that big titty white woman? Fuck.
What?
Oh God. She played one of the characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Her name starts with a J. Yeah, Scarlett Johansson. Yes, she played. There was a World War II movie with this little Jewish boy who was trying to hide out. No, he was a Nazi.
Yeah.
He was a little German boy who hid like a little Jewish girl in his house. Stuff like that.
I forgot the movie's name, but yeah.
Yeah.
Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit. Yeah, exactly. We never reviewed that film, but it's like at least growing up in America. Like, for me, I feel like we get exposed a lot to, like, Jewish... Because we have the most amount of Jews in the world outside of Israel. I think there are more Jews in America than actually there are in Israel.
I've heard that, too.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about. We get exposed a lot to their culture and stuff like that, and... I mean, growing up, The Pianist was one of my favorite movies.
I've never seen it. I love Adrian Brody. But yeah, that's a really good point, because I also don't know how like Zionists dodged that. Yeah. How Zionists dodged Holocaust and then do the same genocide to like Palestinians.
Yeah, it takes a level of cognitive dissonance and historical revisionism and just play like blindness, you know what I mean, to it, you know what I mean? And I think the majority of people who probably live in this land or with this situation happening just probably they're just like every other people in the world. They don't pay much attention to it. Yeah. Most people don't watch the news. Most people don't know what's happening around. They're just taking care of themselves and their families. You know?
Or I don't know, or maybe they use that to furthermore justify what they're doing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Palestinians who did the Holocaust, so I don't know how they would be able to do that. But yeah, just moving on, I guess Yuval sort of asked the same question that you asked previously. We watch these things, we consume these things, and you feel touched, you feel sad, and then what?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, one of the questions this film asks is that with social media, with all these cameras around, with all this attention, in the face of these, atrocities, what do we then do with that information? And what can we do? The attention economy of social media is meant to be monetized and meant to be easy, accessible entertainment. As much hope as we had that social media was going to spread awareness and democracy and freedom, it really was designed, and we shouldn't be surprised that it ended this way, as a way to make money for advertisements for companies.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of buzz or interest in Coca-Cola putting an ad before a Zionist shoots a Palestinian dead in the street. You know what I mean? It might go viral, but that's not what YouTube, Instagram, TikTok is built for. I
mean, as long as people can make profit off of it, it's gonna stay the same, I feel like. And it's gonna be, it maybe gives off some information, but then what? And Yuval also was saying in that scene, we need to teach people how to make change. And that's definitely not just watching and liking a video and then feeling sad. But yeah, last scenes of the movie sort of gives us some, headlines, and we also see a person getting shot by a settler.
Yeah, and the film says that they finished the documentary in October 2023, and we all know what happened on October 7th of 2023. So that's why that person was, shooting, and the person who got shot ended up being Basel's relative.
Cousin.
His cousin, right? And his cousin was shot in a dispute with an Israeli settler. The Israeli settler, in the video, as you can see, approaches the man with the gun, and the unarmed man sort of pushes him back. And then you see the settler basically shoot him dead square in the middle of his stomach, right in his diaphragm. And that's vicious, man. That's,
I do have some, information about what happened to the cast and the people we watched about. So basically what you said, the end scene that we see, the guy whose name was Zakaria Al-Adra, and he was shot by Yitzhak Nir. And Yitzhak Nir said he was acting in self-defense and was not charged by the police. And also his father and uncle perpetrated the 1983 Hebron University attack that killed 3 Palestinians and wounded 33 more. The Israeli military bulldozed Zakaria Al-Adra's home in May 2024.
Savage. How do you have a lineage of terrorists in your family? That's insane, bruh. We tend to think that, the Palestinians are the ones who are doing terroristic activities. The Israeli state was founded by paramilitary terrorist groups that waged guerrilla war against the British occupiers, you know what I mean? And so many of the settlers in the West Bank, are fans or relatives or related or closely related to or near people that have committed atrocities against the Palestinian people in the West Bank. You know what I mean? So Yitzhak Nir, we were researching this before turning on this this video recording, and it's so crazy. He's still walking around free, and Al-Adra's family had to file multiple complaints for the police to even open the investigation. But even then, there's still no charges for this cold-blooded murder caught on camera.
Yeah. I mean, it can't get more real than that, catching it on camera, and yet there's no, no results for it.
Yeah.
But moving on, Basel Adra, the main character of the documentary in February 2025, just this year, he was attacked also by Israeli settlers in West Bank. And, he went to the Academy Awards, but he ended up like going back to Palestine, to West Bank. And I believe he's now married and has children. So, yeah.
But the police still regularly raid his home. There's a video out there of Basel Adra with his new home, his new wife, and he's got the posters of No Other Land, Academy Award winner, all on the front of his house and stuff like that. And still the Israelis, burst into his crib and stuff like that. And I'm not saying like having an Oscar is gonna like protect you. Like you can't wave an Oscar in the face of an AK. But you would think, a person as high profile as he is should be sort of like off limits. Not in the fact that the Israelis don't want to fuck with him. It's the fact that if you fuck with him, it's going to be an international scandal.
Yeah.
If he gets shot by the Israelis and murdered cold blood, like people will talk about that so much more than just the other random people you murder every day.
But that's the tactic. I feel like they don't kill him or they can't kill him because of that, and also hopefully, God forbid, Allah forbid that it doesn't happen. But I feel like also a lot of these people like become hits. Also there were a lot of journalists that became famous because they were, and not famous in a way like they have fame and money, but they reached out to a lot of people. And then, I don't know, 6 months later, they're targeted and then killed. And yeah, I don't know. Hopefully nothing happens to him. Hopefully he will be safe and his family will be safe.
I want Basel and his father to live long enough that they see their people free again.
Yeah. Continuing on March 2025, Coke director Hamdan Bilal was attacked by Israeli settlers at his home in Susia in the West Bank and left with head injuries. He was taken away from medical care by soldiers with the Israeli Defense Forces who invaded the ambulance that was transporting him and detained him for a day before releasing him. Over 800 members of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences signed an open letter criticizing the Academy for not publicly supporting Bilal after his arrest.
That's wicked. I don't know if he died from that.
I think he might have. I mean, when I checked the source, it basically says he was taken to the hospital, which was supposed to take 10 minutes, but it took them 40 minutes to get to the hospital because of the checkpoints. And then he spent 82 days in the hospital, and that's sort of where it leaves. So I don't know if he ever.
I mean, the thing is, this is all recent stuff. Like, this is 2025. So imagine making a film so truthful and honest that, your producers and directors are on a hit list now. You know what I mean? And definitely these people are being targeted, for what they're doing here. It's such a shame. Basel saw his cousin die right in front of him. His best friend behind the camera, got beaten up for making this film. It almost makes you feel like, I know he probably doesn't, but, you could probably also say, I feel bad for putting a target on my people's back by having them involved in this project. You know what I'm saying?
There is a target regardless, though.
Yeah, that's the double-edged sword. Because it's like, damn, we're going to either die without anybody knowing, or we put a camera up as they shoot at us.
Yeah.
It's so fatalistic.
Yeah. And, lastly, just this summer, on 28th of July, 2025, Avda Hathalin, also known as Ode Hadalin, a consultant on the film and father of 3, was fatally shot by Yinon Levi, an Israeli settler who had previously been placed under EU and US sanctions.
Do you know how fucking bad, how bad you have to be an Israeli settler on US sanctions?
I didn't know that was possible. You can sanction one person.
Yes, we sanction a bunch of people. We sanction individuals in the Russian government, North Korean government. But do you know how much of a Zion? We love the Zionists. You know what I mean? But even if the U.S. government says, whoa, you got to chill, bro. You know how extreme you got to be? And this person, probably Yinon Levy, this murderer, is probably still walking around too.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, it's very recent. But yeah, I guess I just want to say one last thing. I have a friend who's very passionate about Palestine, and I was sort of discussing the movie with her, and she's boycotting this movie.
Interesting. Why?
And that's exactly what I asked her, and she said, she said that she doesn't appreciate that these movies are being staged in places like the Berlin Cinema Festival and like other places like the Academy Awards and things like that, where none of the people who work there or who contribute there actually support Palestine and are just in it for the capital. From what I heard, after they went on stage in the Berlin Festival, the Berlin Academy tweeted something pro-Palestine and then deleted moments later saying their account was hacked. And that they stay with Israel and they stand with Israel. So yeah, that like those sorts of things, I couldn't help but sympathize with her. But then I asked her also, like, do you think, the pros outweigh the cons in this case? Because yeah, in order to be heard in the world stage, you have to use capitalism as a tool to, reach out to a wider audience, unfortunately. And there are people who make profit off of you and off of your pain and your story. And yeah, I don't know. And she was like, at this point, if you don't know what's happening in Palestine, in Gaza, in West Bank is bad, you don't need a movie to tell you that.
Yeah, you don't. Honestly, you can, you don't. You just have to look at, the numbers, close to 500,000 people have been murdered since October 7th in Gaza. You know what I'm saying? That's you don't need more knowledge than that. There's no reason for 500,000 people to die. That's sick. I can understand the frustration of, a film being received by people from the West who either really don't care or are only in it to seek financial gain from the film, and also basically who couldn't care less about the actual subjects of the film. As a black person, I was frustrated about reading Chimamanda and how Chimamanda is elevated by the white literary elites. You know what I mean? When she sort of, in my opinion, creates stereotypes and tropes that make white people feel very comfortable. Dysfunctional black men that need to die. Okay. But Chimamanda, in and of herself, her work in isolates away from the white gaze is beautiful and is touching and is very well written. So I could understand both sides, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to play both sides, but I get the frustration because I deal with that. But let's keep it real. There's no reason to boycott any film nowadays because we all watch them for free. If you can watch something for free, it doesn't say I'm not gonna watch it on principle. Like, bitch, you're not paying for it. But once again, you don't need trauma porn to know it. I don't need to see every movie about black pain and suffering to know we're fucked up and we're dealing with white supremacy. You know what I mean? This movie is meant for people, I think, like us, who, care about the Palestinian cause, don't directly have Palestinian people in our life, and want to be more informed so we're better able to educate and advocate for the cause. It's not meant for maybe an Arab person who this is a part of the Arab identity, the fabric, the care about Palestine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I also, like you said, I understand her point of view as well. And, she's also so involved in like everything from raising money and things like that. Maybe just watching this, like you said, feels like misery corn for her.
Yeah. And
just sort of feels very passive, But, like you said, for us that are kind of more distant and further away, we can at least talk about it. And if we, affect anyone with our discussions, then that's a plus.
Absolutely. So that's all I got to say about this film. I'm going to give it a final score. I think it's It's a very, very, very good documentary. I don't want to say perfect. It's a 9.5. Like I said, something about it is a bit off in the way they do the climaxes and the tension that rises. And I understand they're showing all the atrocities and the removal of land, but it felt like certain times like this is the peak and this is where they're going to wrap up the story. And it didn't feel like that, you know what I mean? And the ending kind of felt abrupt for me, but it is still a very important story. So I give it a 9.5. Very well done, very well directed and told. Just that one thing just felt weird for me. But yeah, your comments?
I agree with you. I think I would also say 9.5.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I thought it was, a very well done documentary, very raw, very touching and effective.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone, who cares about this topic, or even if you don't care about this topic, you should go watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, I feel like if you're a Zionist, you're going to watch this and say, it's all a lie.
It's all a lie.
If you're not informed about what is happening in West Bank, this is a good movie to watch and, educate yourself.
Absolutely.
And I believe almost everyone in the world who is somewhat known of discrimination, invasion, colonialization, racism, sexism will in some way relate to Basel and Yuval.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So check out this movie. We highly suggest it. If you got any other films you think we should review, put them in the comments section. Looking forward to doing more movies this year as well. Y'all be easy out there. Free Palestine from the river to the sea, end the genocide, end the occupation. Peace.